In the village beneath the listening tree, birthdays were not allowed to arrive quietly. They came with ribbons and recipes, with lanterns to be hung and chairs to be counted. They arrived in the mouths of neighbours, in notes pushed beneath doors, and in bright ideas shouted across garden walls. A birthday, the villagers believed, should be filled from its first minute to its last, so that not even one small pocket of emptiness could slip inside. Maxi usually loved the villagers' excitement. She loved the way people brought what they had. A loaf still warm from the oven, a jar of honey, a song rehearsed badly but sung with great courage. She loved watching strangers become friends around a long table. But this year, as her birthday approached, something inside her did not rise to meet the celebration. It sat down. It was not sadness, and it was not ungratefulness. It was a tiredness so deep and quiet that Maxi almost did not recognize it as tiredness at all. It felt more like a room within her had gone dim, and someone had gently placed a sign upon the door, "Please do not enter, repairs are taking place." Still, the invitations began. The first arrived as a scarlet paper bird. It flew through the open kitchen window while Maxi was pouring tea, circled the table twice, and landed on the sugar bowl. "A feast beneath the lanterns," it chirped. "Everyone will come." The moment Maxi smiled and said, "Perhaps," a fine golden thread slipped from the bird's beak and wound itself around her wrist. The second bird was blue and suggested music until midnight. The third wanted a picnic beside the river. The fourth one proposed speeches, dancing, games, and a cake tall enough to require its own ladder. Each idea was offered with love. But each time Maxi said, "That sounds lovely," another shining thread curled around her. By afternoon, both of her wrists glistened. Lucy thought the threads were a marvelous new game. She bounced around Maxi's knees, trying to catch them with her front paws. Gypsy watched from the doorway, head tilted, her pale eyes following the threads as though she could see where they truly led. Psycho lay beside Maxi's chair, large and still, but every so often he lifted his head and pressed his nose against her hand. Maxi scratched behind his ears. "I know," she whispered. "Everyone means well." The next morning, Maxi woke before sunrise. Her body had slept, but some watchful part of her had remained standing all night, holding lists. There were messages to answer, plans to consider, people to thank, work waiting in careful piles, a story half written, a remedy to prepare, a promise she had made 3 weeks earlier and remembered only now. She went to the kitchen and reached for her favorite cup, the deep green one with a tiny gold moon painted inside the rim. She dropped in a tea bag, poured the steaming water and stared. The cup was empty. She poured again. The kettle emptied itself in a silver stream, but not one drop remained in the cup. Lucy put her front paws on a chair to investigate, and Gypsy sniffed the floor for missing water. Psycho merely sighed, as though he was expecting this. Maxi lifted the cup. On its base, where no words had been before, a sentence had appeared in curling gold letters. "This cup cannot be filled while it is still being carried." "That makes no sense," Maxi said. The kitchen clock stopped. Its long hand trembled between 1 minute and the next. Outside, the first bird of morning opened its beak but made no sound. A drop of water hung from the tap, perfectly round, refusing to fall. Then came a knock at the back door. On the step lay a small parcel wrapped in plain brown paper. It had no ribbon, no card, and no sender's name. Inside it was an old brass key, warm as though someone had carried it close to their heart. Tied to it was a narrow strip of cloth embroidered with these 6 words: "For the door that appears after no." At that very moment, another paper bird fluttered towards the house. This one was covered in tiny silver stars. "A surprise party," it sang. "You will not have to do a thing." Maxi felt the familiar answer rise automatically. How kind, how lovely, of course. But beneath it was another answer, smaller and truer. Not this time. She placed one hand over the golden threads at her wrist and spoke carefully, because the words felt both simple and enormous. "Thank you, but no, this birthday I need to be quiet." The silver bird did not fall from the sky. It also did not burst into flames. It simply bowed its folded head, turned and flew back the way it had come. Somewhere beyond the garden, a door clicked open. Gypsy heard it first. She sprang from the doorway and raced behind the herb garden where the stone wall usually met the old fig tree. Today there was a gap between them. Beyond the gap ran a narrow path Maxi had never seen before. It was covered in white thyme flowers and smooth stones that held the warmth of summer, although the morning was cool. Psycho rose and moved towards it without hesitation. Lucy shot past everyone, tail high, delighted by a road that had not existed yesterday. Maxi slipped the brass key into her pocket and followed. The path wandered through places that seemed almost familiar. It passed a pond reflecting a sky from late afternoon, though dawn still rested behind Maxi. It curved beneath trees whose leaves whispered unfinished sentences. Once she heard the distant ringing of a telephone, but Psycho stepped across the path and stood there until the sound faded. They came to a field filled with clocks. Clocks hung from branches, grew from the earth like mushrooms, and floated above the grass on silver chains. Some raced, some moved backwards, some had no hands at all. Every face bore a different instruction. Hurry, answer, finish, decide. Do not disappoint them. Make good use of the day. Lucy barked at the loudest clock. It barked back in a sharp metallic clang. She jumped behind Maxi, offended. Gypsy found a clock half buried beneath moss. Its face carried no numbers, only a single word. Enough. When Maxi touched it, every other clock in the field fell silent. Beyond them stood a blue door in the middle of the air. There was no wall around it, no roof above it, only a small keyhole and a brass plaque that read, "The house between the hours. Enter without your list." Maxi reached into her pocket and found not only the brass key, but several folded lists she did not remember putting there. Tasks, messages and ideas. Things she ought to buy. Things she ought to become. Things she feared she had forgotten. She hesitated. Psycho leaned his great shoulder against her leg, and Gypsy sat beside the door. Lucy dropped a stick on the list and looked very pleased with herself. Maxi laughed for the first time that morning. Then she placed the papers beneath a stone and unlocked the door. The house on the other side was small enough to feel safe and large enough to contain a sky. Its windows opened onto a hidden cove where waves folded themselves softly upon pale sand. A fire glowed in a round stone hearth. There were shelves of books with blank spines, a deep copper bath, a bed beneath a quilt the colors of clouds, and a kitchen where a pot of hot chocolate was already warming. Lucy ran straight to the cove and plunged into the shallows. Gypsy followed more carefully, snapping playfully at the foam. Psycho chose the rug before the fire, turned 3 slow circles, and lay down with the satisfaction of someone whose work was finally proceeding according to plan. A woman stood at the kitchen table. At first Maxi thought she was old, because her hair was silver and her eyes held the patience of mountains. Then she turned towards the window, and she seemed young. When she smiled, she appeared neither. "Welcome," she said. "I am the keeper of the unspent hour." "Whose hour?" Maxi asked. "Yours." The keeper poured hot chocolate into a green cup. This time it filled at once. "Every person is born with an hour that belongs only to them," she said. Not always 60 minutes. Sometimes it is a morning, sometimes a quiet meal, a closed door, a walk, a bath, a breath before answering. It is a portion of life in which no one is asking you to become useful. Maxi wrapped both hands around the cup. It was warm and sweet with cinnamon on top. And what happens if we give it away? Most people do. A minute here, a yes there, a little piece handed over because another person is disappointed, hurried or hopeful. They give away the hour in fragments, then wonder why they feel as though they have disappeared. The words stung because they were gentle. Maxi looked down at the threads around her wrists. In the stillness of the house, she could see that they were not merely tied to party plans. Some reached towards work, some towards people she loved. Some vanished into the distance, fastened to needs that had not even been spoken yet. But people depend on me, Maxi said. Yes, said the keeper, and the earth depends on rain. Yet even a cloud must become full before it can give anything. The keeper showed Maxi the bath, where warm water shimmered with tiny lights, like stars beneath a dark sky. Rest, she said. Maxi stepped into the water. For 3 breaths, it was wonderful. On the 4th breath, she remembered an unanswered message. The bath emptied itself with a loud gulp. The keeper filled it again. Maxi closed her eyes. She began planning the next chapter of her story. The water vanished. On the 3rd attempt, she decided she could at least use the time to organize her thoughts about the coming month. The bath gave a tired little sigh and drained away before she had even sat down. I'm not very good at this, Maxi admitted. Few people are, said the keeper. They have turned rest into another performance. They try to do it correctly, improve through it, earn from it, or return from it with something to show. Then what am I meant to do? Nothing. Maxi waited for further instructions. That is all, the keeper said. It feels unfamiliar because nothing is the one thing you have not been practicing. So Maxi tried again. This time she did not chase the thoughts that appeared. She let them pass like boats beyond the cove. She listened to Lucy's splashing, to Gypsy's paws on wet sand, to Psycho's deep sleeping breath near the fire. She felt the water holding her without asking her to hold anything in return. And slowly, the golden threads started to loosen. The keeper sat beside the bath and spoke in a voice as soft as the waves. Your body has its own night workers. They mend, digest, balance and restore. But they cannot begin while every inner bell is ringing. When you are always preparing to answer, please, solve or protect, the watchmen stay awake. The jaws tighten, the breath shortens, the stomach forgets its rhythm. Sleep becomes a shallow room. Maxi thought of the tiredness that did not feel like tiredness, the list she carried through sleep, the way even joy had begun to sound like one more thing to manage. Healing does not happen only through what we add, the keeper continued. Sometimes it begins with what we finally stop demanding of ourselves. The last of the bathwater remained. Afterwards, Maxi wandered into a small sunlit room she had not noticed before. It contained a chair, a window, a vase holding one white flower, and no mirror. What is this room for? She asked. For being where you cannot watch yourself being, said the keeper. Maxi sat down. At first she became aware of everything, the way she held her shoulders, the thoughts that wanted to sound wise, the urge to decide what this moment meant. Then the room grew quieter than her self-observation. She noticed how tired her hands were. She noticed a sadness she had not made time to name, and a happiness beneath it that did not require an audience. She noticed that she wanted her birthday to be soft, a slow morning, tea, then perhaps hot chocolate, time with the dogs, good food when she felt hungry, and no schedule, no need to make the day memorable for anyone else. The wanting was so ordinary that she nearly dismissed it. But the white flower opened. "The soul rarely shouts," said the keeper from the doorway. "It repeats a small truth until you are quiet enough to stop arguing." Maxi looked at her wrists again. The threads were still there, but looser now, resting across her skin rather than pulling at it. Will people not think I do not love them? Some may feel disappointed. Disappointment is not proof that you have done harm. But what if they need me? Then you may choose when and how to answer. A closed door is not a locked heart. Outside, Psycho lifted his head as though he'd been waiting for those exact words. That evening, Maxi slept beneath the cloud-coloured quilt. She slept past the hour when she would normally have spoken to remember something. She slept past the inner voice that measured whether she had rested enough. She slept until her breathing became deep and even, and the muscles around her eyes forgot their work. As she slept, the golden threads unwound themselves from her wrists. One by one, they rose into the air and became fireflies. They drifted through the open window, crossed the field of silent clocks, and returned to the village. A firefly settled upon every paper bird, every invitation, and every loving plan. Each carried the same small message in its light. She loves you. She is resting. Both can be true. In the village, some people read the message and smiled immediately. Some needed to read it twice. One woman began to protest, then stopped, when she realized how tired she was too. A baker turned the sign on his shop door from open to back later and sat in the sun with his own bread. A mother left her dishes in the sink and listened to a child tell a story from beginning to end. An old man declined an invitation he did not want to attend and discovered that the sky did not fall. For one quiet hour, doors closed all across the village, and behind them, hearts began to hear themselves. When Maxi woke, sunlight lay across the bed, and all three dogs were waiting. Lucy's face was close enough to fill her entire view, and Gypsy sat with a solemn expression of someone pretending she had not slept on Maxi's feet. Psycho rested his chin on the edge of the mattress. "Is it time to go home?" Maxi asked. The keeper stood beside the blue door. "You do not leave the house between the hours by becoming busy again. You carry its doorway with you." She handed Maxi the brass key. "Use it whenever you tell the truth before exhaustion tells it for you." On the other side of the door, the village clock began to move. The suspended drop fell from the tap, and the morning bird completed its song. Only a few minutes appeared to have passed. At Maxi's gate stood a small basket. Inside were three things: a fresh loaf, a jar of honey, and a note written in many different hands. "We would love to celebrate with you when and how it feels good to you. Today, your only plan is to belong to yourself." Maxi smiled. She spent her birthday slowly. She drank tea while the sun warmed the steps, and later she made hot chocolate and added far too much cinnamon. She walked with the dogs without deciding how far they should go. Lucy found water and splashed as though this were the purpose of birthdays. Gypsy followed a butterfly into the long grass. Psycho lay beside Maxi beneath the listening tree, his enormous body keeping watch while she did absolutely nothing. In the late afternoon, a few friends arrived carrying supper. No speeches had been prepared. No lanterns needed hanging. Nobody asked Maxi to make a wish before she was ready. They ate together, they laughed, and when Maxi grew tired, she stood and said, "Thank you, my door is closing now." No one mistook it for a closed heart. That night Maxi opened up her journal. For a long while she watched the blank page without rushing to fill it. Then finally she wrote, "The heart that listens to everyone must sometimes close the door so that it can hear itself." Beneath it she added, "Rest is not the space between important things. Rest is one of the important things." She placed the brass key between the pages and closed the book. Somewhere between the final tick of 1 hour and the first tick of the next, a blue door appeared in the dark. It waited without knocking. It knew she would return.